धन्यवाद। सुरेश प्रभु, श्री सुरेश प्रभु।
Sir, this banking companies bill 2005, I was wondering whether since the bill was presented to the parliament and now subsequently the various amendments that have been introduced by the finance minister, whether the finance minister would be looking at the possibility of changing the object clause itself. I think finance minister is busy with doing something else, but whether the government will be really interested to looking at a possibility of necessitating the changes in the object clause itself, because since the bill was presented and the type of official amendments have been moved, probably you are really looking at the objects other than what is stated in this. For example, one of the objects of this bill is facilitating the government in case of 14 nationalized banks, whether the capital should be reduced from 51% to 33%. That was to reduce, to have some changes in the capital structure of the banking companies itself. Because this is your object clause says, I'm statement of object, sorry. I'm talking about statement of object.
On the case of the earlier bill, please.
I know.
Please correct yourself.
I know.
When the bill was introduced by the other government,
I know. Then
there was a proposal to reduce it to 33.
Correct. Yeah.
That particular provision has been now removed from this amendment.
So one of the objects of this bill was, because of the changing complexities that are there in the country, the banking structure of the country, as my illustrious colleague Mr. Rao was saying, if the banking structure is strengthened, it will facilitate to really have a very robust economy. How do you make the banking very robust? Sir, the debate of whether banks should be nationalized or there should be social control goes back to year 1966, when Morarji Desai was the finance minister of India. He had appointed a committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Pai Panandikar, an eminent economist, who had in fact said that nationalizing the banks may not be the long-term interest of the country. So ever since then, in 1969, most of the banks were nationalized, and since then, we have been now experimenting with the banks in a manner that is not in the long-term interest of the banking sector itself. Either we should be clear whether we should continue to have the banks as the public sector undertakings, whether government should have ownership of the banks, or whether we should allow the banks to function in a manner that they will really grow naturally and there will be regulator, which is appointed by the government, like the Reserve Bank of India, which will regulate the banking sector. But as you have seen now, that government keeps experimenting with it, wanted to reduce the shareholding to 33%, I'm not saying this government, but some government, and now we want to, again saying, probably I don't know what, because of what, that we should not bring it down below 51%. Now whether you keep it 51% or 74%, or 84%, it hardly matters, because government is going to exercise the control of the banks of this. So how do you actually have a robust development of the banking sector is a question. And if you want that banks should not be denationalized, but should have a proper control of them, then the shareholding pattern is very important, because today the banks are controlled by the government, means they are controlled by the Department of Banking in the Ministry of Finance. That means somebody right from the level of Under Secretary to the level of Joint Secretary, Secretary, they exercise the control of the bank. So whether the banks are controlled by the Parliament of India, I don't think so. They are really controlled by those who actually run the banking department of the Ministry of Finance, and therefore all the chairmen of the bank must come and go before those who actually make the appointments, and seldom the ministers also are aware that whose appointments are being made. Their appointments are made by the secretaries and the others. So therefore, the control over the banking system, whether it is in the interest of the country, in the interest of the banks themselves, really needs to be seen in a very proper perspective. As you have seen now, that since 1969, when the banks were nationalized for the first time, since then, we have now, after 91, when the Narasimhan Committee recommendations came in, when the capital adequacy norm were decided, when the prudential norms for the banking sector were decided, when the provisioning norms were decided to have recognition of income, All those norms were decided after Narsimhan Committee recommendations were made, and thereafter we also introduced, now allowed the private banks to come into play. So we have already taken a very big departure. We had a bank business entirely nationalized in 1969, but after 92, we also allowed the private banks to come in. So therefore, our philosophy now is not that the entire banking business should be controlled by the government. If that is a philosophy, I can understand that we should not allow the private banks to come in. But having allowed the private banks to come in, and also not allowing the public sector banks to grow naturally, and to create two types of layers and operational field, wherein government will control some banks, and therefore they will have some advantages as well as disadvantages, as I said, and the private banks who are playing some role, and foreign banks, either through the branches or as the entities which are set up in India, they are also operating in India. Of course, besides them, there are cooperative banks. But I am just saying, so the banking sector today has already got private banks playing into the country, and therefore the nationalized bank should be allowed to function as independently, as autonomously as possible. The ownership is one part, but the other part is management. Now the challenge before us, not just in banking but also in the other CPSUs, how can we allow functional autonomy to the managers of these banks as well as others, and without bringing in the adverse advantages of the government controlling it. So that's the point I think that we really need to take into account.
Please conclude.
So the second point is these Basel norms, as which are stipulated, which clearly decide the capital adequacy. In fact, now we are going to ask the private banks to raise the equity from tier 1 capital or some part through tier 2 capital. But the nationalized banks will be now, because the government cannot infuse more capital because they don't have money, government cannot dilute equity because there is some political compulsion. So therefore, we are now trying to introduce different norms wherein even bonds and other type of capital that can qualify for Basel II norm. So that I think is a disparity that exists between private banks and the nationalized bank, and I think that really needs to be looked into. So the other issue, and the long-term issue that we really need to focus on, is what is the vision for the Indian banking. I remember the Honorable Finance Minister made the Reserve Bank of India governor and said in the few days we are going to come out with a blueprint for the development of the entire banking sector. I think I would really request the Finance Minister to clearly let us know his vision for what is his vision for the Indian banking, how the Indian banks are supposed to develop, what is the role for private banks, what is the role for foreign banks, what is the role for the banks which are owned by the government today. And that vision will really be helpful. Sir, you are, and therefore, sir, if you ask me to conclude, I will conclude. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.